Thank you for letting us come and speak. We appreciate trying to get this message out, especially now, because we do have an infestation of glassy wing in our neighboring county over in Solano. So kind of important that you all hear this. So we appreciate you inviting us. So just a quick overview is what we're going to do, kind of go over the GWSS history, Pierce's disease history, plant inspection procedures, some of our trapping program, and then review that infestation over in Solano County. I'll kind of go over that too. So I won't get in, I'll butcher the Latin name, I'll let you all read it. And the disease name, I'll also let you read that because the coffee hasn't fully kicked in, so we'll let you do that. But Pierce's disease, I think most of us are familiar with it. So arrived in California on plant material, maybe nursery products coming in from the southern United States. It's, I think, originally from Florida, but it's moved across all southern U.S. It's everywhere. Moved throughout California in our own nursery program, and then they discovered it, and nurseries now have to have compliance agreements and ship products. If they're coming out of areas, they have to do all the treatments before they arrive and the inspection procedures, which I'm all going to go over. So we know glassy wing sharpshooter lives on lots of different plants, lays its eggs on lots of different plants. Seems like every year we get an update. There's more plants that host it. So, and there's some feeding hosts, and then there's those hosts that are for, they lay their eggs on as well. As we know, we also have our native blue-green. I always want to talk about that. Spreads the same disease. It can only feed on the smaller part of the vine. Most of that gets trimmed out every year when you prune. Again, when you replant, though, you got a lot of young vines out there, a lot of tiny material. It's a real important time to make sure you're monitoring for blue-greens so you don't get an infestation of Pierce's disease. And we're all familiar with the Temecula vineyard down there and how ugly it looked. And it doesn't take long if you have a little infestation. Glassy wing sharpshooters are strong flyers. They'll hop from vine to vine, plant to plant. I always want to remind people, especially right now, we're kind of in a mild, hopefully this won't be a mild winter, but we've gone through a string of mild winters. That's when they're going to survive in these areas of Northern California that they normally wouldn't survive. Bakersfield was the last kind of infestation that it was in a mild winter again. They overwintered in a bunch of eucalyptus trees, and then they came out the next spring and spread out throughout the vineyards. That was, I think, back in 2014, 15, something like that down in Bakersfield. We inspect all the plants coming in to Napa County. Not only from infested areas where they're known to be infested, and those nurseries in those areas treat before they release those plants up to us. They get inspected, they get treated, they come up here, we inspect them, and then we release them for people to grow and plant stuff. But every nursery calls us. We also inspect every plant that comes from every other county into Napa County. And we do that because we've had some plant brokers who buy and sell plants all throughout the state. And some of those plant brokers, let's say one's up near Chico, he may have bought some plants from Southern California, had glassy wing, got up to Chico, and then turned around and got shipped over to us. And maybe an egg mass got missed or something. So we inspect those plants, and that's paid for. Those inspections are paid for by the Wine Grape Pest Disease District. So thankful to them that they pay for that, because we have had shipments that we have found egg masses on that we normally wouldn't do. Now, when we do the outreach with those nurseries that are plant brokers and stuff, they're happy to let us know. They tell us where they're going, and we follow those trucks throughout the valley all the time. So just to kind of go over the breakdown of inspections, if somebody does the math, that's on working days, that 8 to 9. And we have 1 to 3 inspectors, kind of depending on the time of the year, and they're running up and down the valley. I personally have done like 18 shipments in a day and put in a couple hundred miles on the truck, and you're just running around. Again, that work is paid for by the state, the whole state nursery program and stuff for those high-risk shipments, and then our locally, the Wine, Grape, and Pest Disease Board pays for, we call them non-blue tag, those lower risk stuff. But we want to make sure we inspect them, so. And also, I should mention, if you guys get green growing grapevines, we will come out and inspect them. And on those, we're actually glassy wing, but we're also doing vine mealybug work. You know, we'll look for vine mealybug because we don't want any more of that either. And then we trap for a lot of these things. So we trap in nurseries, we trap in urban environments, we trap in vineyard environments, and I'll kind of go over that as well. Nursery traps. So if you're a nursery, I'll start in American Canyon, Mid-City, Walmart, Van Winden's, Central Valley up in St. Helena. I think Ace Hardware up in Calistoga has a little nursery. They all have traps outside their facilities, and there's a little method to determine how many traps each facility gets as well. But we're trapping all those, and those are up all the time. If they're getting plant shipments, they're up. We also have some areas, and I'll go into that a little bit more, but like a development. I'll pick on the guys down on Stanley Lane. They'll basically have like a nursery trapping program too, because they're getting so many shipments right now that we just put up traps just to be careful. So the urban traps, basically every city in our area, we break down into grids, and those traps go up in the spring, come down in the fall. They get relocated every 6 weeks. Not super high density, but enough, I think, one trap per square mile. And they get rotated throughout the season. Vineyard traps, I think a lot of us are familiar. We put those up. They go up. They're also piggybacked with some of our other traps that we do. European grapevine moth, vine mealybug, all of our sentinel trapping. We put those out there. So, and our trappers are, you know, you've all seen our trappers driving through the vineyards. High-risk traps. So high-risk traps are, again, I'll use the Stanley Lane development, or maybe there's a winery that's gotten a few shipments from high-risk areas or just gotten a lot of shipments, and those change throughout the season. But what we're doing is kind of tracking wherever we've gotten anything super high risk or just a lot of plant shipments. The Four Seasons development up in Calistoga, we'll hang some traps up there just for a little bit longer, just to kind of keep them going, just to make sure that nothing came in right away. So, and like I said, the high risk traps are really driven by those inspections where we're getting plants at. So. Again, I kind of jumped ahead, but multiple plant shipments or multiple high-risk areas that we're worried about. So, and those stay up for 3 months, and then we'll move them down. We'll go on to the next high-risk location. Sometimes that high-risk location might continue on to Four Seasons, Stanley Lane. They're still building. They're still going on. They're still getting plant shipments. So. And then education and outreach. I'm kind of racing through all this stuff. Education and outreach, you know, we're doing stuff like this kind of stuff. We do stuff at the fairs, farmers markets occasionally. Sometimes the nurseries, we just go out on a weekend, set up a little table, and bore people to death about glassy wing sharpshooter. So we also have our billboards. And our signs, our bug spot signs as you come into the county. We're down a few because of fires, but I believe there's a plan to replace those. You might have a lot of questions on the Vacaville fine, so I'll kind of make sure I cover this. So this slide, I just want to put this up just to show you how close it is to Napa. It's closer to Napa than Calistoga is close to Napa. Now, luckily, there's a big mountain range in between us, but it's close, so we are aware of it. So, found in late September, Solano County Ag jumped on it pretty quick. I got the area circled. That's the Browns Valley area of Vacaville, kind of east of like the outlet stores, kind of behind the Nut Tree Airport. You can kind of see just up there along 505. The Solano County Ag Department has worked with other ag departments, kind of twofold, letting us come in and observe to make sure, alleviate some of the fears other counties have. Solano has invited Contra Costa in, Napa, Yolo County, all the neighboring counties to them. They've invited us over, and we've helped with some of the survey work. I went over, a few of the inspectors have gone over just to do what they call knock and talks. So you knock on the door, you describe what the infestation is, and then we did a survey of all their landscaping plants. We actually, just like a nursery survey, we went out, put our hands on every plant in their yard, looked up in the trees as best we could, just looking for life stages, adults, larvae, or egg masses on all the plants in their yard. And the one thing I kind of want to share is when I went over, second house we went to early in the morning, knocked on the door, didn't get a very good response, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long day. After that, everybody was totally cooperative and very friendly. Just one person wasn't, which I was surprised at, but the neighborhood seems to be very cooperative, and every day there's somebody from Solano County out there checking a trap or knocking on a door. They've got lots of delimitation traps that get checked, I believe, almost every other day. So they're keeping an eye on that. They've already started some treatments in areas of foliar applications. Then the spring, I think they're going to come back in and do some soil injections to get some systemic uptake in some of those plants, just to make sure that nothing survives. Did I miss anything there? Again, I just want to highlight, they pay for a lot of stuff. That's your guys' money that the Wine, Grape, and Pesticide Board takes in, and then they're divvying that out. They pay for a lot of those shipments and extra trapping. They're actually doing enhanced trapping this year because of Solano County, because we're like, well, they're really close. Maybe we should do some enhanced trapping, make sure, to protect against hitchhiking glassy wing, just to make sure we're covered there too. Want to thank you, growers, and remind the growers, if you ever need any educational material, give us a call. We've got lots of flyers, but also to train your work group on what glassy wing looks like, what the egg masses look like, because if you catch it fast, we can get on top of it faster too. So, local nurseries do a wonderful job. Local landscapers do a wonderful job of calling us up, and we get out there as quick as we can. Sometimes we'll get a new landscaper that comes in the county, and they're like, "What? I got to call you?" And they're just not familiar with this. They don't have to do that in other counties. We hit them pretty hard, but most of them, they all do it. They all jump right on board because we get out there usually pretty quickly. And if they have an emergency, like I got to get these plants because I got to move a crew somewhere else, we'll get out there fast, and we let them call us ahead of time if you know when they're coming, and we can be there when they're getting unloaded off the trucks. So, Napa County residents are really pretty good. I start to talk about this, and people go, "Oh, the billboards! Oh, Sharpie!" So. And if anybody wants a personal appearance by Sharpie, John will put on the suit and come on out. Again, just to show you that, and Andre did this little thing, so I got to keep it in my presentation too. And then, like I said, train your employees. Really go over that stuff with them. not only for glassy wing sharpshooter, vine mealybug, it's a big help. I always come back to vine mealybug too. I'm not talking about it today, but if you find an infestation in your property, let us know about it, because we do anagyrus wasp releases over the summer. And if there's an active infestation, that's where we want to put them. We want to encourage them to go eat those things, because then they'll overwinter and we'll build up numbers of something that can control vine mealybugs. So, and how about questions? Oh.
Let's see, before we move on to questions, Chris Hyde is over here, and he'd like to speak on behalf of the Pest District Board, and maybe some more questions will come up from that. So, Chris.
Morning, everyone. My name's Chris Hyde. I'm a member of the Napa Pest District Board, and I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, we work closely with the Ag Commissioner's Office to trap all these pests and potential threats to vineyards here. It's actually a great program we have going, and I just wanted to add a couple things to Greg's presentation. You can actually go onto the Ag Commissioner's website. You can check the trap data and see where the local fines are in your area. It's a helpful tool for growers to identify, what local outbreaks in their area. Vine mealybug, glassy wing. Well, I guess blue-green is something we're going to start trapping. Hopefully we don't have glassy wing sharpshooters here, but anyway, it's really important work we're doing to try to keep Napa safe from these dangerous pests. And also, we encourage you to come by and pick up materials. We have little cards at the Ag Commissioner's Office, which will help your crews identify and find vine mealybug, sharpshooters, etc. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. Stop by the Ag Commissioner's Office, pick up those materials.
We brought some vine mealybug handouts. They're at the tables outside that describe life stages of vine mealybug. We got the little wallet cards too, so you can hand those out. Again, educate the employees so they know what they're looking for.
Perfect. Yeah. Yep. The materials are here, so please take advantage. Feel free to distribute those among your crews, and stay aware. We got to keep these things in check. And yeah, again, thanks for your participation. Thanks.
Great.
Questions?
I'll start with one. What are the control tactics looking like down in Temecula and areas where this has been firmly established? Have there been any progress on biological controls, or how are they keeping things in check in other areas of California?
There is a predaceous wasp that, again, doesn't survive in Northern California, but they've released it down there. But from my understanding, is it's still thriving down in Southern California. I kind of went over the diseases of Pierce's diseases and how they exhibit in other plants. Southern California has an issue with oleander scorch, killing a whole bunch of oleanders on the freeways, and they don't like that either. So there's a little bit more research, I guess, being done, but as far as like knocking down the things, I don't think that's really happening. I mean, because I've gone down to Southern California, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen sharpshooter rain. It's a nice term for excrement as it rains down on your head. But you can actually see that in foliage and in trees. Wow, it's kind of sprinkling, and that's sharpshooters. So,
how about can you speak to what other counties that are heavily invested in grape growing, what they're doing for their monitoring programs, like Sonoma or Mendocino County?
I know Sonoma does a lot of work. I'm not quite sure how their inspections work anymore. I used to, but again, one of the things that changed in the inspection world for a lot of counties was when they did the, we call them ATP shipments, and it's nurseries from high-risk areas that have a whole program set up, monitoring. They trap their properties. They get all the plants that are shipping to non-infested areas get treated and inspected. The ag departments down there have a whole program set up with these nurseries. And those have really been quite well. One of the projects that we do with those ATP shipments is occasionally we go out and grab a bunch of foliage, send it off to the lab, and see if there's any residue on there. We want to see residue in this case because that means if there are life stages on there, they won't survive. And we have found egg masses that are dead because of their treatment program. And it's pretty robust, but we do QC checks on it by sending off those foliar samples to make sure they do have residue. And Sonoma County, I don't know what they're doing, if they do that kind of stuff as well. And I think they kind of have a little different breakdown, like non-blue tag, they may not inspect like we do. Their growers may not want to pay for that. Like, I don't think we'd be doing non-blue tag if the wine grape pest control board didn't pay for it, so. Any other questions? Yes.
Greg, can you repeat the question?
How often do we find glassy wing sharpshooter egg masses? We find them, but a lot of times they're old. They're not viable. We haven't found a viable egg mass for a season or two. I know last year, and we were talking about the plant broker, we had a plant broker that shipped a bunch of buxus plants, boxwoods, over to Napa to a landscaper. We went and we're doing our normal shipment, and all these boxwoods, there was about 30 of them, were loaded with egg masses. Now, the nice thing is we refused that shipment, and then they said, we don't want them back. So we destroyed the shipment. But they were from an ATP program, we found out later on, because they were a plant broker. They actually weaved their way into here. None of the egg masses that we collected were viable, but they were so many that we just turned them down. And worked with that county, and they worked with that nursery that's all kind of a plant broker too. So now when they deliver here, we know where they're going. They send us a schedule. If they're coming over here Wednesday, we've got a whole fax, and it kind of lays out what time they're going to be dropping off plants, and we can just follow that through. So most of the time, those nurseries are really cooperative, as are landscapers. So, yes.
Is there any way to quantify the infestations along kind of the stage there?
Quantify the, John, can you quantify the, well, let me go back here. Just to give a little bit more update on that. So this Browns Valley neighborhood, it's pretty good size. That is not that's just me circling it so I could show it. They actually have a whole buffer set up for that and trapping zones and stuff like that, but this circle is bigger than it is. So I would have to say it's expanding from their original, when they found it originally, and then they've set up more traps and kind of see how far out it got. And it's not as big as that circle, but it has spread out from its original find. Now, the good news is we got the colder weather. They haven't caught anything for, I think, a couple of weeks now. But they were catching stuff, and then they were also, like, Andre went over there. Chris from our office has gone over there. Summer's gone over there. I know Andre and Chris, they went over really early on and just were going around, and they found it. They found life stages of it. They found, they have a little video, hence its sharpshooter name, kind of creeps along the plant, I guess like a military sharpshooter would on the ground, but if you put your hand up, it'll go around the backside of the plant. So you put your hand on the backside and it comes towards you. They just don't fly off. They kind of will rotate around the plant at first. I haven't seen numbers, but it did expand, but I think lately it hasn't really kind of expanded, so.
Can you speak to what would happen? What are the plans that are in place should a live adult or a life stage be found in Napa County? What kind of plans are in place?
So there's a whole plan. There's a response plan that we've worked out. A lot of that is you find it and then you start delimitating. You hang a whole bunch of traps. The treatments can happen pretty quickly in that case. If let's say we found it in a vineyard, vineyards are more than welcome to treat for it if there was a thing. But also we would do the home treatments, the residence treatments. But it all kind of goes in stages. So I don't have that program memorized down, but I know the first part is you get in, you survey, you do extra trapping to really zoom in on where it's at so that your treatments are the most efficient as possible. So now, if you're asking the question about how soon they could do damage, pretty quickly. I mean, especially adult glassy wing fly pretty well. Again, that's why we're all paranoid about it and don't want it here. And Solano County has got on it pretty well. And the one thing Solano County growers are, I think, know that this is going on. They've got almonds over there. They don't want to lose that. They've got peaches. They have issues with that. But also, I think I said this earlier, the neighborhood over there has been really cooperative as well. So lots of people are concerned about it, but they're also given lots of access to like the ag department so they can get on it and figure out the best plan and do treatments and stuff like that. Yes? I haven't seen it done. I've done some stuff myself, but it's basically taking the pesticide product, you mix it with water, and instead of spraying it on the tree, you just inject the ground and the tree roots will take it up. And so then whatever's in there, glassy wing feeds on it and it kills it. So pretty basic. I mean, they just put it in the ground and they don't spray it on the ground because they're worried about pesticide drift and all that, but they'll just inject it in the ground.
Any other questions? Greg, thank you very much. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the update.
Appreciate the time.